What's up everyone, Gids here for another video, and today's video will be on Gran Saga tips that I have seen in the JP server that I want to share to everyone. So I'm gonna have 5 tips for everyone before the early access. So these tips are not really gonna be huge, but they are good things to keep in mind once you start playing for early access. So hey guys, just a quick note here. It looks like early access is gonna be delayed till November 6th, so it's no longer gonna be an early access on October 30. Not sure, it looks like they're having some issues on their end, but yeah, this basically means we have 1 week of early access. The tips I'm going to share to you are not really going to change, and it's not gonna be affected by this one, but oh well. Let's just wish that nothing goes wrong on release dates like on early access and of course on the global launch. Okay, back to the video. Global launch will be on November 13, so this is just to give you an idea on what to do on the first day of early access, and so that you won't end up regretting creating your account and messing things up. Well, there's not really a lot of things that you can mess up, but these are just good things to keep in mind, okay? So yeah, if you want more information, more tips and tricks, and more videos on Gran Saga, leave a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's start, okay? First tip is going to be on the characters. Okay, so characters in this game, there's actually a lot of them, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a limited amount of them. But we have like 7 or 8 selection in the release. So my suggestion and my tip for my first tip is to play the characters that you actually like. All of the characters here are actually very viable, and the only difference that it makes when it comes to PvP, of course, is the, well, whales versus the free-to-play, right? So you can see here we have a lot of different things that will be affecting the combat power of the character. So if you look at here, these are all the stats that you can get. Right now I can't understand and I can't explain them all without using a translator, but anyways, right? Anyways, you can see here, there are stats that are attached to your grand weapons. And you can see here, grand weapons basically... Oh, wait, I died. I died to the boss. Anyways, okay, so you can see here, we have stats that are attached on our grand weapons, and we have stats that are on our artifacts, okay? So starting off with artifacts basically give you HP and defense flat, and then they give you another passive skill which increases with every copy that you have of that artifact. Simple enough for artifacts, okay? So artifacts, you can basically just accumulate these things while you play the game, because these things are not really specific to each character, although there are some that are specific. Like for example here for Tsui. Wait, why does she not have it equipped? This is the character specific artifact for her, so it increases her damage reduction, and I think crit. I'm not sure, I don't remember which ones, but yeah, basically I think almost all characters have their own artifact like this. But if you end up not getting it, it's actually fine. It's actually not that bad if you don't actually get them, right? So it's not really that hugely important to get it. What's important is if you look at the difference between the grand weapons, because grand weapons are specific to each character, and some of them are shareable for the upgradable characters, but most of them not really shareable. So if you look at this one, grand weapons will be giving you a base stat of attack damage, and of course it also gives you passive attributes, passive abilities for the whole team as well, and of course the skills that you will be able to use once you get them to fully upgraded. So this one's fully upgraded right here, so it turns into pink and it becomes SSR plus with the 8 diamonds right there, right? So this is a fully maxed out grand weapon right here. You can see the stats, 4,950 for the attack, and you also unlock a special passive with the skill on this thing right here. But if we compare it just stat wise on an SR that's maxed out, so this is an SR, just an SR grand weapon that's maxed out, you have 3,325 versus the 4,900. So the difference is like around 1,600 attack, and that's really, I mean, that's still a lot, but it's still good enough for you to be able to progress into the game. And of course, you're gonna be accumulating all these things later on in the game anyway, because as I've said in a previous video for the features and stuff, you can actually get to, there's actually banners in the game where you can select what rate ups you want for each characters right here. Right? So it's possible for you to just select these things and summon on those banner, which which puts us into our tip number 2, which is to focus on one character at a time if you are playing free to play. Okay? So again, it's very important to be actually saving your crystals, your diamonds, whenever you don't really need any of the rate up characters. This banner right here is permanently here in the JP server. So I'm not sure if it's gonna be on launch server as well, but it's gonna be here. It's gonna be here, and you get to just pick the characters, pick whoever you actually want to max out, and you get a rate up on their things. And of course, once you get to the pity, you're guaranteed to get one out of the many choices that you can get of this ones. But of course, it's gonna be random, but at least it lets you build towards the character that you actually really like. Okay? Now the thing is, if you are not sure yet who you actually want to build, you can try out everyone. Like, you can just auto equip. This one's the auto equip button, right? You can just auto equip everyone for artifacts. Artifacts are basically shared for their stats and of course some of the abilities, except for the character based ones. And of course, even the equipments right here. There are different types or classes of equipments. There are these ones that are for generally the tank units, right? So yeah, generally these are the ones for the tank units. I don't know how to sort this one. But anyways, these are for the tank units. There are for the mage-like units. This one's also a tank. And we also have the assassin-type units, right? So there's 3 types of equipments, and those equipments are basically shareable for each of the characters. So if you get a high-tier equipment, like there are tier 4s and gold tier equipments, you can share it across the same class of characters, right? So for example, this one that has a tier 6, I can unequip it and share it with another frontline type character like this one right here and move it right there. There you go. It's very easy to actually transfer over the equipments, and you don't really lose much from doing it. So if you're still not sure, you can just power up the equipments that you want, and you can just leave all the grand weapons aside until you actually get copies of them naturally. Like for example, this one, I have Last right here. I'm not really aiming to build Last, but look at the number of copies that I have on his grand weapons. Like I have 5 copies of this, 4 of this, 4 extra copies of this. So yeah, sometimes you get lucky on characters, and sometimes it might make sense to actually just start building them. But again, the main thing is that you want to focus on one single character while you're working on building your team, right? So for example, for me, I focus heavily on Hilda because she's the game-breaking meta right now, or I don't know. She was the most recently released in the JP server. So power creep-wise, she's definitely going to be very strong, and I've put all my strongest on her. Second strongest equipment will go on to Chewie right here, and third strongest equipment will go on to here. So that's basically how you want to build your teams. Okay? Okay, next up is just going to be a simple one. How do you check it again? Okay. Next tip is on the elemental attributes on this game. So we have multiple attributes. So we have like 6 in total, and this one is Rainbow, which is basically for most bosses. I think this is only really applied to bosses. So this one has an attribute advantage against everything, and everything has attribute advantage over it. So the downside of having a negative attribute or attacking a negative attribute is that you deal 25% less damage. You get 50% increased damage if you have attribute advantage over the enemies. And then you have normal attribute over here, which is not affected by any of these things. And of course, if you're not attacking anything that you are weak to or strong to, then you deal no additional damage, right? So that's one of the advantages of playing light or dark. Like all 4 of these ones, you will not have any penalties or advantages, and you have basically advantage against the other attributes. So one of I don't know. What I did for my early game for this game is that I just built a light character and played with it because it's pretty good because you don't have to deal with elemental attributes. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the elemental attributes. So it's also something for you to keep in mind when you're trying to build comps because there are some bosses or there are some stages wherein it's actually pretty hard if the character that you built is one specific element. For example, mine is Hilda, right? My specific character is Earth and the boss is Wind element. I deal so little damage on it, right? So my damage is really mitigated, and sometimes dungeons are time gated. You won't be able to deal as much damage until it ends. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why I recommend building light and dark characters as well, because they are pretty good in those kinds of situations. No bonuses, but no penalties as well. Okay. Next up is for artifacts. So there are some special artifacts out there that you want to keep in mind. So there are some artifacts right here for this shop for specifically, right? So for example, this thing right here, if we look at the description of it, it says something along the lines of you need to get 5 copies of this one to be able to unlock the guardian for it. So guardians are basically assists or supporters. Is there a way to show it here? They're basically supporters. These thing right here. Can you see it? I'm covering it, I think. Okay, this guy right here. This guy is basically your guardian. So this is a guardian. It gives additional stats to the whole team. Team HP 765, and it also has its own abilities. I'll probably just upload a translated version on here, and it has 30-second cooldowns right here. Okay, so there are some artifacts. There are SSR artifacts, or artifacts that are tied with the guardians. For example, this cat right here, right? If you look at the requirements to get there, you need to have 5 copies, or you need to transcend the artifact to transcend 5 before you'll be able to unlock this cat right here. Right, so those are things that you want to keep in mind when you're trying to look for certain artifacts if you are not sure of what artifact to take yet, especially if you want to spend the green cubes right here, right? So this thing right here will unlock if you have 5 copies of it. There are some that has not 5 copies. This is also 5. I think this one will not be 5. This is only 2 copies, right? So you get to unlock SSR guardians through this one by picking certain artifacts that you need, and you can also do this one on the summons. There's a selector right here. So yeah, this one is a selector for artifact that you actually want. So when it comes to PvP right now, almost everyone is picking this guy right here, the puppet guy, or it's just this one, the pink cat, right? Wait, it's not a cat, it's a bunny. The pink bunny. So yeah, that's pretty much the meta right now in the JP server from what I'm seeing. So let's take a quick look, right? So yeah, you can see here, it's up here. It's the bunny for this guy, bunny for this guy as well. Oh, it's all the bunny. Whoa. Oh, they all switched already. Yeah, previously it was all this way. Previously it was all this one, the puppet. But it looks like it's now the bunny. The bunny is now taking over. Okay, so yeah, that's about the guardian. So if you're not sure with artifacts, then that's one way to actually check it. Also, leaderboards, right? Okay. Next one is for the equipment. So I think I touched on this one earlier, but here's something you want to keep in mind when enhancing equipments. So let's take a look at some of the equipments that I have. So let's see this one. Okay, so this one's level 1, right? Level 1, and then if you level it to 50, you get to unlock extra stats from this thing right here, and they are basically RNG. And if you look at the number of materials that we use, it's 722 of this level up material. So 722 for this one, and I level it up. The thing here is that you can actually disassemble the equipment, right? So again, we use 722 for it, and now let's try to disassemble that equipment that we just leveled up. Is it being used? I think it's being used. Huh? there a way I can find which character is using it? I don't know. Let me see. Um, it's this one, right? Okay, so it's this one. So when I try to unequip it and disassemble, you can see here 230. It's only 230. So quick maths right here. 722 divided by 230. That's almost 30%. You get almost 30% back. So yeah, be careful of over leveling equipments, especially over level 50, because the materials that you use will exponentially go higher, of course. And if you're not really going to keep that equipment for a long time, especially if it's a tier 1 equipment. I don't suggest going over level 50 because you're gonna be using higher tier equipment later on anyway. So unless you really need the extra attack, damage, or power, that's the time you actually level up those equipments with extra materials if you have the extra level up materials. Because look at this one. To get it from level 50 to level 86, it requires like 5,900 already, and it's going to be super expensive. Let me move myself back here. Okay, so just keep those things in mind when building your equipments. Okay? And of course, finally, for the last tip for the game is to enjoy. Games are made to enjoy, and yeah, if you're not having a good time, then definitely you're not gonna appreciate the time that you spend on a game, right? So yeah, there are different types of ways for people to enjoy games, right? Some people like to wail because they like the feeling of being strong. Some people like the grind where they want to build their character up from rags to riches and something like that, right? So it's different for each person. So you decide how you want to be happy with a game, and you decide if you want to stick with the game or not. And for me personally, I kind of like it, and there's also a lot of time for me to play and also AFK in the game if I'm not doing anything, or if I'm playing something else, or even if I'm watching something else while playing this game, which is why I personally like this one. Okay, so leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions, let me know as well. I try to respond to all comments, questions, and whatever in the comment section. So yeah, just drop it down in there. Okay, so that's pretty much it for me on this video, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye-bye.